his welcome remarks.
Honorable External Affairs Minister of India, Srimati Sushma Swaraj, Honorable Ministers of State of the Republic of India, Cabinet Ministers from Singapore, Brunei, Darussalam and Myanmar, Vice Ministers, Deputy Foreign Ministers and Heads of Delegations of ASEAN countries, Honorable Chief Ministers of Northeastern states, Ambassadors, dignitaries, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me immense pleasure on behalf of RIS, Research and Information System of Developing Countries, to invite all of you for this important meeting. Now, why do I say this Delhi dialogue is important? It's the 10th edition. It deals with India-ASEAN countries. And India-ASEAN ties are central to today's international environment. If the 21st century is to become Asia's century, I believe India-ASEAN ties are central and fundamental to enable this to happen. I also believe this is the first time that we have turbulence in both the security and the trade and economic spheres. In both these spheres, we have new architecture which is being sought to be built, or existing structures which are sought to be modified. Again, I think it is India-ASEAN which will enable that the structure, the architecture which emerges will be inclusive, transparent, sustainable, and open to all. So it is again this background that we have had wonderful sessions in the morning. I wanted to inform the Honorable External Affairs Minister and others that these sessions will continue tomorrow. And I believe this Delhi dialogue, because it is track 1.5, it enables government leaders, policy makers to actually interact with think tanks and to be able to discuss issues in a candid and honest atmosphere in order to come up with some ideas, some issues for discussions, if not solutions. So once again, I welcome each and every one of you, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As he very rightly mentioned, it's the idea that Minister for External Affairs, Madam Sushma Swaraj, envisaged, and this is the 10th edition of India-ASEAN Dialogue, Delhi Dialogue as it is called. And it is for the first time in 10 years that we have got all the chief ministers. Thanks to our Honorable Minister that she envisaged this idea, and as in the morning, almost all the chief ministers mentioned and thanked you in absentia in terms of bringing in real voice and also the ground level experience and the kind of dynamism that is required to connect Northeast and Act East. With these words, I again welcome you, and Honorable Minister, I now request you for your remarks.
Thank you, Sachin. Namaskar and a very good evening. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to welcome you all to the 10th edition of the Delhi Dialogue. The presence of so many ministers and senior officials from ASEAN countries, as also the chief ministers from our northeastern states and other dignitaries, is a tribute to ASEAN-India relations. The timing of our meeting today is very auspicious. We are on the threshold to welcome the Indian month of Shravan, when the monsoon sets in. It is the same monsoon that for centuries set the maritime rhythm in the Indian Ocean from the east coast of Africa to the Straits of Malacca. It created an intricate web of trade routes where courageous seafarers sailed, transporting our kings, our merchants, priests, scholars, royal emissaries, and adventurers. Riding on the waves of these seas also traveled cultural, religious, and political influences, creating a rich tapestry of our shared heritage. These voyages continue to be celebrated today as Bali Yatra in Odisha, which means a Loy Krathong voyage to Bali, on the Loy Krathong or Loy Brahapradeep in Thailand, where ritualistic boats are floated in the month of December. India and ASEAN share bonds of family and kinship. There are several stories to recount, from the tales of the Indian Brahmin Kondinya, who sailed to Funan to marry a Naga princess, or the young Pallamvalla, who was brought from Vietnam to restore the royal lineage of Pallavas in South India. The Ahoms in Assam are descendants of Thai. Khamitis of Thailand and Myanmar also live in Assam and Arunachal Pradesh, whereas the Khasis in Meghalaya have ancestral links to Thailand. In modern times, our leaders have continued to maintain these links. Indeed, they shared close relations and drew inspiration from each other's experiences. While fighting for independence from foreign rule, Gandhiji visited Yangon thrice, while Bal Gangadhar Tilak was deported to Yangon by the British for several years. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose visited Malaysia, Myanmar, and Singapore. Notably, the last Mughal emperor, Bahadur Shah Zafar, spent his life in exile in Myanmar and lies buried there. Our poet laureate, Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, traveled to Southeast Asia in 1927. ASEAN is one of the focal points of India's foreign policy, strategic concerns, and economic interests. These are the words of our former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee when he attended the first ASEAN-India Summit in 2002 in Phnom Penh. Our government is committed to bringing India-ASEAN nations to full potential through our Act East policy with ASEAN at the core. Friends, this has been reaffirmed by our Prime Minister Narendra Modi on several occasions, and I'll now quote him so that it may scale new heights and constitute a defining partnership of our times, unquote. The Delhi Dialogue has emerged as India's foremost ASEAN-centered track 1.5 forum for realization of these objectives. Policymakers, eminent academicians, think tanks, and the business community of India and ASEAN member states have used this platform to share their views, to deepen and develop our unique relationship. Over the years, this forum has yielded rich dividend of ideas for us. Friends, this year's Delhi Dialogue is particularly special. As we celebrate its 10th chapter, it follows the commemorative summit of 25th January 2018 in New Delhi, which marked the 25th anniversary of ASEAN-India partnership. The summit recognized that India and ASEAN, a maritime partner and neighbors, must work together to ensure security and sustainability of oceans, seas, and waterways. It is therefore appropriate that the theme of today's Delhi Dialogue is focused on strengthening ASEAN-India maritime cooperation. In fact, our maritime policy was articulated by Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi at the Shangri-La Dialogue last month. India's interests in the Indo-Pacific are vast, and our engagement is deep. Our vision is one word, Sagar, which means security and growth for all in the region. We have a comprehensive agenda of regional cooperation with both IORA and ASEAN. Our expanding partnership with all countries in the region is an integral part of this. The Indo-Pacific must be a free, open, and an inclusive region. We must follow a common, rules-based order that takes into account the equality for all, irrespective of size and strength, and allows for equal access as a right under international law to the use of common spaces on sea and air. Our vision of the Indo-Pacific not only involves physical interconnectivity, but also entails building bridges of trust based on mutual respect, giving due regard for sovereignty and territorial integrity, consultation, transparency, viability, and sustainability. Finally, there is an imperative need to eschew protectionism and avoid a return to great power rivalries. Friends, India has been working with ASEAN towards evolving a regional security architecture which is focused on ASEAN's centrality, peaceful settlement of disputes in keeping with international law, and finding collaborative solutions to emerging and non-traditional challenges is important. We are ready to strengthen cooperation in areas of HADR, search and rescue operations, anti-piracy, counter-terrorism, counter-proliferation, and collaborate on maritime domain awareness. We will also work towards ecologically sustainable development of ocean resources in a collaborative framework. We believe that ASEAN is central to it, and indeed lies at the heart of it. We therefore feel that our discussions at the Delhi Dialogue can play a constructive and a vital role in the region and beyond. Yesterday, together with Vietnam, our ASEAN country coordinator, we organized the second ASEAN-India workshop on blue economy. Other dimensions of cooperation, such as maritime security and maritime connectivity, will also be discussed in our forum. The ASEAN-India region together represents a combined population of 1.85 billion, which is a quarter of the global population, and a GDP of over 3.8 trillion US dollars, creating one of the largest economic spaces in the world. Our bilateral trade has crossed 80 billion US dollars and expected to reach 100 billion US dollars by 2020. ASEAN-India Free Trade Area in goods, services, and investment has no doubt played an important role. We are also engaged in the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP negotiations, involving ASEAN and its 6 FTA partners. We believe that the RCEP presents a decisive opportunity to further engage our eastern neighbors economically. We hope that we can finalize the negotiations soonest possible. An important ingredient for boosting economic engagement is making Indian companies a part of regional value chains and production networks. The Project Development Fund, with a corpus of 77 million US dollars, can be used to initiate economic projects in Cambodia, Lao PDR, Myanmar, and Vietnam, CLMV countries. Friends, our duty-free preferential scheme for the least developed countries in ASEAN is also intended to encourage greater trade, including movement of natural persons, technical assistance, and capacity building. Today, India is one of the fastest growing major economies in the world. In the last 3 years, Government of India has undertaken a number of initiatives and introduced a series of reforms to improve the business environment in India. Our government launched the Goods and Services Tax on June 30, 2017, the biggest tax reform since our independence. These steps have opened new opportunities for trade and investments into India. I invite companies from ASEAN countries to take advantage of these opportunities for investments in India in numerous sectors such as smart cities, roads, highways, ports, railways, power, and urban infrastructure. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we recognize that the single most important ingredient that can make a qualitative shift in our economic engagement with ASEAN is a major boost towards infrastructure and connectivity. We are making substantial progress on all fronts, both bilaterally and regionally. We hope to transform these corridors of connectivity into corridors of economic cooperation. In connectivity, India has made considerable progress in implementing the India-Myanmar-Thailand trilateral highway and the Kaladan multimodal transit transport project. Our recent agreement with Indonesia to develop port of infrastructure in Sabang is yet another step in this direction. We are working on specific proposals to set up a regional high-capacity fiber optic network, supplemented by national rural broadband networks and digital villages in remote areas. We have offered $1 billion US line of credit to help finance these and other connectivity projects with ASEAN. Friends, to take forward our cultural relations, we held a very successful youth summit in Bhopal in August 2017 to bring our young leaders together. The next chapter of this youth summit will be held in Guwahati later this year. We will also hold additional sessions of the India-ASEAN Band Festival and Artist Retreat to build cultural connections among the younger generation. The third ASEAN-India Conference on Cultural and Civilizational Links will be held in Cambodia in August 2018. The year 2019 will be celebrated as the ASEAN-India Tourism Year, as decided during the commemorative summit. These will enhance people-to-people contacts. India-ASEAN engagement is deep-rooted, and we place ASEAN at the center of our dream of an Asian century. As Asia regains its global position for the 21st century to be called Asia's century, it goes without saying that India and ASEAN will play a vital role in ensuring this. We look forward to working with ASEAN member states in order to turn this vision into reality. I wish the 10th edition of Delhi Dialogue all success and look forward to hearing from you your views on the future of our strategic partnership. Long live India-ASEAN friendship. Thank you. Dhanyavad.
Thanks, Honorable Minister. Now I would like to invite His Excellency Minister for Foreign Affairs, Singapore, for his remarks.
Your Excellency, Sushma Swaraj, Minister for External Affairs of India, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First, I want to thank my sister, Sri Sushma Swaraj, for the invitation to participate in this inaugural ministerial session of the 10th Delhi Dialogue, and of course for your warm hospitality that goes beyond the warmth of New Delhi at this time of the year. Singapore has been and is a long-term advocate for close and closer relations between India and ASEAN. My Prime Minister, Mr. Lee Hsien Loong, attended the ASEAN-India Commemorative Summit in January this year, where we celebrated our 25th anniversary. I'm happy to now attend the Delhi Dialogue this year that celebrates its 10th anniversary. And we deeply appreciate India's efforts to expand engagement with ASEAN and the larger region in Southeast Asia. Last month, Singapore was very happy to host Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi. He delivered the keynote address at the Shangri-La Dialogue. He was the first Indian Prime Minister to do so, and we were inspired and impressed by his speech. The Prime Minister Modi stated, and I want to quote and use his exact words, quote, "Inclusiveness, openness, and ASEAN centrality and unity lie at the heart of the new Indo-Pacific," unquote. Singapore, and I think I can speak on behalf of all the other ASEAN countries, share this vision. The Prime Minister Modi also reiterated, quote, "ASEAN has and always will be central," unquote, to the future of the Indo-Pacific region. And we agree that a robust, united, ASEAN-centric regional architecture that is open, that is inclusive, that invites and interacts with all stakeholders is our best chance of building a peaceful, prosperous, and secure region. Obviously, Singapore is a tiny city-state. We have no chance of surviving in a world where might is right. Singapore, therefore, by definition, has to be a strong advocate and supporter of a rules-based world order which upholds the rights and the sovereignty of all states equally, regardless of size, and provides for peaceful dispute resolution without resorting to force or the threat of force. In other words, a rules-based world order. I'm very glad that the theme of the dialogue this year is strengthening India-ASEAN maritime cooperation. We believe this is apt and timely. Maritime connectivity has always presented profound advantages to us in the past and even now and going forward to the future. From the perspective of efficiency, utility, the sea routes offer greater efficiency and economies of scale compared to overland roads and railways. Let me try to give you a graphic example of that. The average container ship nowadays carries around 20,000 TEUs, 20-foot equivalent units. That's just the average container ship, not the biggest. Now, if you were to unload this ship, take each container and put it onto a train and line it all up into a single train, you will end up with a train that is 100 kilometers long. Think about that. One ship unloaded would take a train 100 kilometers long. And you know that there is no such train 100 kilometers long. This is a very stark example of the economies of scale that the maritime dimension offers, and no land route, no train, no matter how fast, can match this. Second, there is a clear strategic advantage to connectivity through the high seas. Unlike railways or highways that need to be constructed, that are subject to ownership and control, the high seas are not bound by fixed tracks or pathways, and especially with the safeguards enshrined by the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea. Once a ship goes beyond territorial waters, that ship enjoys complete freedom of navigation and can sail anywhere in the world. In other words, the maritime dimension offers many-to-many connections, and you are not confined by any other state. And this is why Singapore, again I speak from the perspective of a city-state that has been a port, a maritime nation, and a trading hub since our founding. We have always firmly and resolutely supported freedom of navigation as an existential right, and including freedom of overflight, and respect for international law. And obviously, the most salient piece of international law for this is UNCLOS, the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea. UNCLOS is critical for us to safeguard the use of the sea for free navigation and for unimpeded legal commerce. And this is why Singapore will also resolutely oppose any attempt by anyone to threaten or to constrain this fundamental right of freedom of navigation and overflight in our region and our surrounding waters. These rights are enshrined by UNCLOS, and again, from a Singapore perspective, one of the narrowest straits that all goods from India will have to traverse in order to get to China, Japan, or even to the west coast of America is the Straits of Malacca. And the Straits of Malacca is defined under UNCLOS terminology as the straits used for international navigation. Now, let's broaden the concept to connectivity. Going back to first principles, connectivity has always been an amalgamation of a variety of types of connection. Historically, we've had the Silk Road. It was constituted by a network of both overland and maritime routes. Ships would dock in port cities in the Bay of Bengal. Goods will be carried through a network of overland routes from these cities across the heart of the Indian subcontinent. It would pass through Delhi, the Punjab Plains. These routes would then join the Silk Road at Balkh in modern-day Afghanistan. The city at this intersection, it's called Bactra, was an equal to Rome and Baghdad in its heydays. In fact, the Arab conquerors of this city called it the mother of cities. Today, of course, we have developed more efficient methods of transport beyond the overland routes. With these new means of transport, goods can reach consumers all across the world far more rapidly than in the past. Today, landlocked Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh are prominent international producers of chili, coriander, cumin, and fennel. Their products are parceled every day into trains, ships, and aeroplanes and dispatched on a daily basis. Whilst we continue to press on with developing sea and land infrastructure, and the example Sushma Swaraj just mentioned, the India-Myanmar-Thailand trilateral highway, in fact, we look forward to extending this highway right across Southeast Asia, and we also look forward at expanding both air and digital connectivity. After all, we're now in a new digital age. Flights have completely transformed the way we travel and the way we move goods. We should continue to liberalize air services, expand air links in order to bring our people and economies closer together and faster than ever before. Nonetheless, such connectivity projects are heavily dependent on infrastructure and capital. The Asian Development Bank estimates that ASEAN's infrastructure needs alone will total US $2.8 trillion between 2016 to 2030. Financing these projects will require innovation and will require private sector participation. Consequently, Singapore has launched our Infrastructure Asia office to harness the resources and capabilities of both private sector firms and public sector agencies. And this Infrastructure Asia office seeks to partner key stakeholders across the region and beyond in order to catalyze more project opportunities to meet Asia's burgeoning infrastructure needs. In our modern world, with the ongoing digital revolution, even as we work to expand connectivity from maritime, air, and land routes, we have to pay attention to digital superhighways as well. We held the inaugural ASEAN Smart Cities Network meeting earlier this month. The ASEAN Smart Cities Network has taken off since its establishment at the 32nd ASEAN Summit in April, and is a key priority for Singapore's chairmanship of ASEAN this year. The ASCN focuses on building an inclusive and collaborative platform for 26 pilot cities across ASEAN. We hope that this mechanism will facilitate cooperation and sharing between smart cities by sharing best practices and, perhaps even more importantly, sharing mistakes and avoiding each other's mistakes. Connecting cities through cyber highways of information will allow us to harvest the opportunities associated with the digital revolution. One defining characteristic of the ASEAN Smart Cities Network is this word called interoperability. And I want to emphasize interoperability because we must be able to interoperate across boundaries and across very diverse systems. The diversity within the 10 member states of ASEAN far exceeds that in any other international regional association. In fact, diversity is a distinguishing feature of ASEAN. We are a voluntary organization, an association of 10 countries, greatly diverse in size, political, economic models, development potential, infrastructure, and financial capability. Therefore, finding the right recipe that will allow us to move forward together and yet recognize and accommodate our diversity is crucial for ASEAN. This diversity is characteristic of the cooperation amongst ASEAN member states, and if I may add, I think equally characteristic of the relationship between India and ASEAN. We hope to link up ASEAN's pilot cities under the ASCN with those of our external partners, and specifically in the case of India, we will support Prime Minister Modi's 100 Smart Cities initiative, not only through investing and developing infrastructure, but also through city planning and sharing our experiences in urbanization. So developing smart cities is just one example of ways in which we can harness the greater connectivity afforded by the digital era. But at the end of the day, the most important thing for everyone, and not just for urban elites, but for the farmer, the craftsman, the artist, the laborer, is to be able to access global markets using these new technological solutions. It must make a difference to their livelihood. It must expand opportunities and must provide hope for a better life for their children. For example, India's Aadhaar digital identity system and the expansion, the amazing and rapid expansion of India's mobile payment technology has greatly improved access to financial services. It's promoted digital and financial inclusion, it's encouraged rural entrepreneurship, it's built up rural capacities and livelihoods. But even as we invest in connectivity and in infrastructure, beyond building highways, laying down fibers, building ports and airports, and keeping sea lanes open, in order to achieve connectivity in the fullest sense of the word, we need to remove barriers to trade in goods, services, and ideas. And that is why, in fact, at this time when there is a pushback against trade liberalization in some of the more advanced parts of the world, it is all the more important for India and ASEAN to double down on the cause for free trade. Specifically, at this time, we need to work towards the conclusion of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, and hopefully to do so by the end of this year. The economic benefits of this partnership are real. We have a combined GDP, India and ASEAN, somewhere between US 3.8 trillion to perhaps some estimates which go as high as US 4.5 trillion dollars. Southeast Asia and India hold tremendous potential that can be unlocked with further integration. There's one more characteristic between that India and ASEAN shares that in fact differentiates us from Northeast Asia, and that is that India and ASEAN are demographically still young. In the case of ASEAN, 60% of our population is below the age of 35. I suspect that number is even larger in India. If we can educate, train, and expand opportunities for the young people in India and ASEAN, the sky is the limit for them. Consequently, the RCEP offers us an opportunity to form the world's largest trading bloc, encompassing almost half of the world's population and more than 1/3 of global GDP, and with good prospects in the years to come. It is no doubt challenging to find common ground and comfortable landing zones amongst 16 very diverse countries. And some may be tempted to coalesce around alternative trade pacts if this process drags on and if we do not settle the RCEP by the end of the year. But we believe we must stay the course, and especially given the headwinds that we currently face at the global trade environment, we are all better off together as one. So we should move forward together, and we must demonstrate that an inclusive and well-connected region remains the best approach for us to capitalize on our complementarities between India and ASEAN in order to achieve growth, in order to achieve hope for our people. So let me conclude. If we can maintain our momentum in connectivity, if we can continue to invest in our infrastructure, if we can continue to agree to progressively open up our air services, if we agree to preserve and protect the sanctity of UNCLOS, and especially the unfettered right to freedom of navigation, as a right, not as a permission. If we can commit to bringing down trade barriers, then we can help construct an interdependent world, a world with more interconnected routes across an integrated region, and a new golden age will await all of us and our children. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. I would now like to invite His Excellency, Minister of Communications, Brunei Darussalam.
Your Excellency, Minister Sushma Swaraj, Minister of External Affairs, Republic of India. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, very good evening to all of you. It gives me great pleasure to join you all here in this wonderful capital of New Delhi to participate in the 10th Delhi Dialogue this year, 2018. And Your Excellencies, on my personal note, this is my very first time attending the Delhi Dialogue, and it's, as I said, it is certainly an honor and privilege to meet new friends and some of the familiar faces that I know I just met since yesterday. And again, indeed a privilege to have this opportunity to interact and exchange views on the 10th anniversary of this auspicious forum, actually. to discuss issues of mutual interests between India and ASEAN. And today we are looking at the theme of strengthening India and maritime cooperation, strengthening India and ASEAN maritime cooperation. And allow me to touch a few points on this, and I will submit the full text of my speech. But allow me just to share with you a couple of perspectives in this issue. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, India and ASEAN member states enjoy a geographical proximity, either linked by land, air, or by sea. And we draw upon experiences of each other, especially in this era of development. We are faced with various challenges that may be well addressed through sustainable progress and strategic collaborations. Now, it is important to note that ASEAN member states are proactively exploring a development path to leverage its locations at the crossroads of Northeast Asia, South Asia, and Oceania to grow ASEAN's strategic significance to Asia. The vision of ASEAN leaders to build an ASEAN community called for a well-connected ASEAN that will contribute towards a more competitive and resilient ASEAN, as it will bring people's goods, services, and capitals closer together. Therefore, an enhanced ASEAN connectivity is essential to achieve the ASEAN community. Now, under the ASEAN Transport Ministers Forum, just to share, much emphasis is put on greater connectivity, efficiency, integration, safety, and sustainability of the ASEAN transport sector. In particular, through the ASEAN Transport Strategic Plan for 2016 to 2025, it sets out strategic measures in the areas of air, land, and maritime transport, as well as transport facilitation and sustainable transport to realize the vision of the ASEAN Economic Community, AEC. For Brunei Darussalam, we believe that a well-integrated and sustainable transportation network is imperative for the acceleration of ASEAN's economic development and market integration. Furthermore, the adoption of the Master Plan on ASEAN Connectivity 2025 by ASEAN leaders way back in September 2016 is testimonial for the efforts to enhance regional connectivity, benefiting all ASEAN member states through enhanced trade, investment, tourism, and development. As highlighted under the Master Plan, and I quote, "Connectivity in ASEAN encompasses the physical, institutional, and people-to-people linkages that are the foundational supportive means to achieving the economic, political security, and socio-cultural pillars of an integrated ASEAN community," unquote. Indeed, a well-integrated, sustainable, and secure transportation system can strengthen ASEAN's position as a regional hub for Asia and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, in this regard, I would like to share some perspectives in efforts towards enhancing ASEAN connectivity within the Asian region in the context of two sectors. One, the maritime sector, and secondly, the aviation sector. Firstly, in line with the dialogue theme of strengthening India-ASEAN maritime cooperation, let me touch on the ASEAN maritime sector. Here we have the ASEAN Single Shipping Market, or what we call the ASSM work program, which is in the progress of implementation of the measures set out in the program. In this regard, coordinated and intensified efforts are critical to the timely implementation of agreed strategies and measures for the realization of ASM. As we strive towards more connectivity, it is imperative for ASEAN to establish and sustain an efficient and well-integrated transport system. As part of our efforts to promote and expand the maritime industry in Brunei Darussalam. One of the major steps we have taken is the establishment of the Maritime and Port Authority of Brunei Darussalam, MPABD, which was only been established in September 2017 last year as a statutory body to develop and regulate the ports and maritime industry in Brunei Darussalam. With the setting up of the MPABD, the focus will be more on developing the policies and creating the right conducive environment for shipping, ports, and maritime activities in Brunei Darussalam. While on the other hand, the management and operations of a major port, the Muara Port, has now been fully operated by the Muara Port Company, which is a joint venture company between the government of His Majesty's Brunei Darussalam and an MNC from China. With the port operations now run by a government-linked company, more significant investments are to be made to upgrade the port facilities as well as equipment with the objective of improving the efficiency and level of services, which is actually in line with Brunei government's ease of doing business objectives and moving towards more liberalization and increasing the shipping activities to the nation. We are confident that the Brunei's maritime industry can be further developed. And we certainly welcome the investors from all over the world to participate in PPP initiatives in the sector. Ladies and gentlemen, let me now touch on the second point that I'd like to share with you, which is the aviation sector. In the aviation sector, anticipating future traffic growth and dealing with potential airport congestion issues are the key areas of discussion for ASEAN member states. In view of that, the 13th ASEAN Summit in November 2007 in Singapore endorsed the initiative of establishing an ASEAN Single Aviation Market, the ASAM, in support of the development of the ASEAN Economic Community. The objective was to establish a relaxation of third, fourth, and fifth air transport freedom rights between member states for an ASEAN Single Aviation Market by the year 2015. Quite a number of ASEAN multilateral agreements have been signed under the umbrella of ASAM. And through this liberalized aviation market, it is certainly hoped that there will be more competition and more routes served by best-suited airlines, leading to a more efficient and sustainable market. Ultimately, the main benefits would be gained by the consumers and producers of air transport and by the tourism industries. It is also important to note that such transport initiatives and programs could not have been possible without close cooperation and assistance with our dialogue partners. India remains as one of ASEAN's important dialogue partners in the sector. And since 2003, there has been a continuous cooperation, and this is further enhanced with the convening of the ASEAN-India Air Services Consultation. Ladies and gentlemen, collective and harmonized commitments by ASEAN and India in enhancing connectivity, both from the perspectives of air and maritime transport, will contribute towards a more competitive and resilient region. It is within such conducive environment that we will be able to achieve impactful changes and facilitate the efficient, safe, and secure movement of people, goods, and services. To conclude, I would like to thank the government of the Republic of India once again for inviting my delegation and I to this very important dialogue. And I'm confident from the productive deliberations there will be positive outcomes for us to act upon for the benefits of our people. Thank you very much.
We would turn to Myanmar, Honorable Minister of Office of State Councillor, Myanmar.
Honorable Minister Srimati Sushma Swaraj, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I would like to congratulate Minister Swaraj for her thought-provoking and comprehensive keynote address. I also would like to express our deep appreciation to the government of India for hosting the 10th edition of this daily dialogue, as well as for the warm welcome and hospitality extended to us. It is indeed a great honor for me to take part today at this ministerial section of this dialogue. I hope that this annual dialogue will continue to serve as an important platform to explore ways to further advance our shared aspirations enshrined in the daily declarations adopted at the ASEAN-India Special Commemorative Summit earlier this year. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, ASEAN member state and India had a strong historical and cultural linkages which can strongly continue to contribute to bringing closer and friendly relations. As Minister Swaraj has mentioned, ASEAN and India, with their combined population of 1.85 million and combined GDP of over 4 trillion, represent one of the largest economic space in the world. The value of India-ASEAN trade has soared to around $80 billion. Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP, once completed, will open up even greater market opportunities for us in the near future. Thus, there's obviously enormous potential for expanding cooperation under economic pillar between emerging global economic power and the fastest growing region of ASEAN. We only need to work together to optimize this huge potential of partnership with stronger political will and shared commitment. It is encouraging to see that ASEAN-India dialogue relations have grown steadily over the past decades and made substantial progress in a wide range of areas, including trade, investment, security, and defense. ASEAN-India relations has already been elevated to the level of strategic partnership. We applaud India for its proactive role and energetic efforts in implementation of its Act E policy and closer engagement with ASEAN, which has shifted from economic emphasis to strategic partnership in the changing geopolitical dimensions characterized by the rising global interest in Asia. I am confident that India's active policy and the plan of action to implement the ASEAN-India Partnership for Peace, Progress, and Shared Prosperity 2016 to 2020 will complement and reinforce each other to thrive our relations. ASEAN region and India are surrounded by the vast Indian Ocean, which is one of the most important sea lanes and trade routes of global trade. We hardly need to stress the central role played by oceans and seas around us in contributing to sustainable economic progress in a secure and sustainable environment. The Indian Ocean is important for trade, transit, transport, energy, and economic development. At the same time, oceans around us can also be a breeding ground for piracy, terrorists, drug trafficking, and other non-traditional threats, such as natural disasters, which can threaten security, lives, and property, and make economies unsustainable. As ASEAN shares both maritime and land boundary with India, peaceful, secure, and stable marine environment in this ocean is prerequisite for the sustainable economic growth of all countries in the region. We can say that the future of the countries along the rims of Indian and Pacific Oceans are somehow interlinked or interconnected. For these reasons, New Delhi Declaration stressed the importance of maritime cooperation among ASEAN and India and voiced the leaders' support for strengthening cooperation in this domain through existing mechanisms. In this regard, we welcome India's visions outline document relating to cooperation in maritime domain, including the introductions of Hindi words for ocean, SAGAR, which SAGAR, which stands as an acronym for security and growth for all in the region. Prime Minister Modi's recent statement, as mentioned by Minister Vivian, in Shangri-La Dialogue has also attracted a lot of attention and interest in the region. We also congratulate India for organizing the workshop on blue economy, which also promote understanding among the countries about the concept of blue economy. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as a country with a long coastal line of Indian Ocean, Myanmar attaches importance to the security of sea lanes and maritime-dependent activities such as maritime trade, ports, shipping, offshore oil and gas exploration, fisheries, and marine tourism for the economic development and prosperity of our region. While we are witnessing increased commercial activities and international trade via sea lanes, our region is also facing with emerging challenges in maritime domain. Therefore, it is important to strengthen our collaboration through information sharing, exchange of best practices and experiences in preserving ecosystem of the marine environment and addressing maritime security related to issues such as illegal fishing, piracy, arms and drugs trafficking, proliferations of weapons of mass destruction via sea lane, and environmental degradation. These areas call for enhanced regional and international cooperation for the benefit of all countries. In this regard, ASEAN member states and India can work together to further strengthen maritime cooperation through the existing ASEAN-led mechanism such as ASEAN Defense Ministerial Meeting, ADMM+, EAS, ARF, ASEAN Maritime Forum, and the expanded ASEAN Maritime Forum. Our discussions on cooperation in maritime domain should be made with the goal of avoiding intensification of strategic competition and confrontation. This forum rather serve as a platform to bridge among maritime rivalries. Any new initiative on regional architecture must be based on ASEAN centrality and unity in addition to free, open, and inclusiveness. In addition, we can strengthen cooperation under the umbrella of the Indian Ocean Rim Association, IORA, where most of ASEAN member states belongs to this organization. We are confident that IORA can serve as a forum for discussion on maritime-related issues as well. The government of Myanmar has already decided to join IORA as a full-fledged member, as we expressed our intention at the first IORA summit held in Bali, Indonesia in March 2017. We hope that Myanmar will be able to work together with its member states soon under this new framework. Moreover, we look forward to the early conclusion of the ASEAN-India Maritime Trade Transport Agreement, which will deepen our cooperation in maritime domain. We are committed to strengthening cooperation with our fellow ASEAN member states in India, as well as with other international organizations such as IMO, in protecting its marine security and enhancing the awareness of ocean and maritime environmental protection. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in the bilateral context, Myanmar's policy of maintaining friendly relations with its neighbors, growing personal friendship among the leaders between India and Myanmar, and also India's Act East policy have significantly generated much closer ties and broader cooperation in recent years. Myanmar and India have been cooperating with the spirit of good neighborliness and time-tested friendly relations under the regional and multilateral frameworks. Thanks to the geographical location, Myanmar can serve as a land bridge between India and Southeast Asian region. Myanmar is indeed a key partner for India expanding relations with ASEAN member countries. Myanmar believes the infrastructure projects such as India-Myanmar-Thai trilateral highway projects will serve as India's major gateway to Southeast Asian countries, as it will connect from Moreh in India to Mae Sot in Thailand. It will also eventually extend it to Cambodia, Laos PDR, and Vietnam. We thank India and Thailand for their assistance in improving the roads in Myanmar, which will become part of trilateral highway linking India and ASEAN. It will also strengthen our Genga-Mekong cooperation mechanism. Recent signing of agreement between Myanmar and India on border crossing will also speed up this process. The Caledon Multimodal Transit Transport Project, which will connect economically isolated northeastern regions of India to Situi Port in Myanmar, will also provide an attractive access to the Bay of Bengal to the northeastern part of India. Most of the components of this important project has been already completed since 2017. The only component of construction of a road from Palawa to Zoranpuri in Myanmar and India border has yet to be completed. The completion of this Caledon project will open a new transport route for the landlocked region of India to ASEAN. Myanmar has also initiated a number of major infrastructure projects which can link India to Southeast Asia, such as Thilawa Economic Zone and the Deep Sea Port and Economic Zone. Once completed, these infrastructure projects will also make a game changer in maritime transport and connectivity corridors in the region. Taking this opportunity, I would also like to share some of our efforts in promoting maritime safety and security. Currently, National Contingency Plan for Marine Pollution is being drafted by our line agencies with the assistance of international experts. In Myanmar, we are also drafting Myanmar Water Contingency Plan to control marine pollution in collaboration with the Norwegian Coastal Administration. Moreover, we have also signed Indian Ocean Memorandum of Understanding on post-state control on 16 October 2017. Progress has been made in drafting the National Oil Spill Contingency Plan, which is expected to be finalized by the end of this year. We have also drawn up National Maritime Search and Rescue SAR plan. We are confident that Myanmar and India can cooperate through the designation of SAR zone in both territorial water. We will continue our discussion to successfully conduct search and rescue activities between our two countries. This evening, I'm also signing the agreement on the International Solar Alliance at this, after this occasion. So I think it will also new step towards cooperation with India in the area of solar energy. As a country focusing on capacity building, Myanmar would welcome the engagement and enhancement collaboration between research institutions of ASEAN and India in the areas of maritime education, innovation, research, and development. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Myanmar will continue its close cooperation with India under the framework of ASEAN-India Strategic Partnership and look forward to commencing its cooperation under IORA framework soon. I would like to conclude by reiterating our commitment to working closely with India along with our fellow ASEAN members to follow up New Delhi Declaration and enhance our cooperation in the areas of common interest, including maritime domain, for promoting peace, stability, and prosperity of the region and beyond. And thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. Now I would like to invite from Vietnam, Honorable Vice Minister. His Excellency.
Her Excellency is Swaraj, Minister of External Affairs of India. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start by extending the warmest greetings from my Deputy Prime Ministers and Foreign Minister, His Excellency Phạm Bình Minh, who regrettably is not able to attend today's event. I also wish to take this opportunity to thank the government of the Republic of India, especially the Ministry of External Affairs of India, for the excellent arrangement and warm hospitalities accorded to me and to my delegation during our stay in New Delhi. It is indeed a special honor for me to attend the prestigious Delhi Dialogue. Since 2009, the Delhi Dialogue has served as an effective platform bringing together political leaders, policy makers, think tanks, and businessmen from both sides to discuss and exchange views on a range of issues pertaining to ASEAN-India relations. Excellency and ladies and gentlemen, ASEAN and Vietnam values India's active contribution to an increasing role in the regional affairs, helping to keep the regional architecture open, balanced, and inclusive. We are impressed by India's economic growth at the fastest rate in the world and its successful reform agenda, which are attributed to India's emergence as a rising power. We have just commemorated the 25th anniversary of ASEAN-India dialogue relations, but ancient ties between Southeast Asia and India go back over 2 millennia. These bonds have been grown over the years and serve as a firm foundation for the ASEAN-India strategic partnership. In line with the theme of this year's Delhi Dialogue, I would like to focus on maritime cooperation between ASEAN and India. Our maritime links, established thousands of years ago, have enabled the exchange of goods, language, script, philosophy, art, and culture. And today, our sea linkages remains increasingly important when we rely heavily on the international waterways for global commerce, continuous prosperity, and economic growth. And today, maritime cooperation has become high on the ASEAN-India agenda. The leaders' extensive discussions at the richest session of ASEAN-India Commemorative Summit in January this year, and 3 paragraphs in the Delhi Declaration on this topic have shown both sides' commitment and interest in moving maritime cooperation forward. In addition, ASEAN and India have long coastlines dotted with many ports and lie strategically on all major shipping highways. Ranked 16th among maritime countries, India has one of the largest merchant fleets in the developing world and has advanced port management, transshipment, and logistics capabilities. These tremendous potentials for ASEAN and India maritime cooperation have not yet to be fully tapped. It is therefore vital that ASEAN and India continue to strengthen our maritime cooperation. I'm fully convinced that only when we cooperate can we harness the full potential of our waters to achieve what is best for our nations. In these connections, we welcome Prime Minister Narendra Modi's initiative to enhance ASEAN-India cooperation by designating cooperation in the maritime domain as one of the main elements of the ASEAN-India strategic partnership. A robust maritime connectivity is crucial for the enhanced trade flows and economic cooperation between ASEAN and India. We look forward to early conclusions of ASEAN-India Maritime Transport Agreement. Our ongoing efforts to improve maritime connectivity may include developing our maritime infrastructures and enacting policies that will support the efficient movement of goods and services between land and sea borders. Seaport linkages, as well as related services and logistic network, could offer promising areas of cooperation for ASEAN and India to look at. The importance of oceans for sustainable development has been recognized in goal number 14 of the UN Agenda 2030, which advocates significantly to conserving and sustainably using the oceans, seas, and marine resources. Against this backdrop, the blue economy seeks to promote economic growth, social inclusion, and improvement of livelihoods, while ensuring environmental sustainability. To take this effort forward, Vietnam and India has co-chaired and co-hosted 2 workshops on the blue economy in 2017, last year, and just yesterday in New Delhi, with a view to having better understanding and identifying concrete activities for cooperation between ASEAN and India in the area of blue economy. At the same time, ASEAN and India share an interest in preserving our shared maritime routes open and secure, so that trade and commerce remain unimpeded. It is crucial that we continue to uphold the principles of freedom of navigation and overflight and respect for the rule of law, including the 1982 United Nations Conventions on the Laws of the Sea. We also encourage greater efforts made by ASEAN and India in addressing transnational maritime security challenges such as sea piracy, drug trafficking, arms smuggling, and human trafficking. To conclude, I'm confident that together ASEAN and India can unlock immense potentials for ASEAN-India maritime cooperation and help peace, stability, and prosperity prevail throughout the region. I wish the 10 Delhi Dialogue a great success. I thank you very much for the attention. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir. Now I would invite His Excellency, the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Lao PDR.
Honorable Sushma Swaraj, External Affairs Minister of India, Honorable Ministers from ASEAN Member States, Singapore, Brunei, Darussalam, and Myanmar, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure and honor to attend this 10th edition of the Delhi Dialogue. I would like to express my heartfelt appreciation to the host, India, for the warm welcome and hospitality extended to my delegation and me, and for the excellent arrangement made for this important gathering. The Delhi Dialogue this year marks its milestone 10th anniversary as an important platform for ministers, policymakers, senior officials, diplomats, think tanks, and academicians to exchange views and discuss ways and means to further enhance ASEAN-India partnership, as well as to promote peace, security, connectivity, socio-cultural links, trade and development in the region and beyond. We are pleased to witness the continuous strengthening of ASEAN-India partnership since its inception from sectoral dialogue partnership in 1992 to full dialogue partnership in 1995, and eventually to strategic partnership in 2012. India's Act East policy has further contributed to enhancing India-ASEAN partnership. Early this year, ASEAN and India celebrated the 25th anniversary of dialogue relations by successfully convening the ASEAN-India Commemorative Summit in January here in New Delhi. Under the theme Shared Values, Common Destiny, where the leaders of ASEAN and India adopted the Delhi Declaration to further strengthening the partnership as well as chart out future direction for the years ahead. ASEAN and India share common political commitment and willingness to promote long-lasting peace, stability, and prosperity for the people, as well as foster closer linkages between ASEAN and India. This morning, we also heard statements made by distinguished chief ministers of northern states of India about ways how to strengthen connectivity with ASEAN. The Lao PDR therefore highly values the enhanced cooperation and achievements of ASEAN-India dialogue relations throughout the 25 years, which have brought about tangible benefits to peoples of ASEAN and India. The theme of this year's Delhi dialogue, ASEAN-India Maritime Cooperation, is an important and relevant topic in today's times. It has also been discussed in various fora, notably and most recently at the ASEAN-India Commemorative Summit. As we all know, the majority of global trade is done via sea. The United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, or UNCTAD, estimates that roughly 80% of global trade by volume and 70% by value is transported by sea. Of that volume, 60% of maritime trade passes through Asia. Indeed, the maritime routes have played a significant role in enabling trade and passage of goods for the region and the world. However, increased trade passes and other marine activities in the region have presented both opportunities and vulnerabilities, such as threats arising from sea piracy, maritime terrorism, armed robbery against ships, and so on. Thus, maritime security is another important factor for ASEAN and India to cooperate closely in ensuring maritime transport safety, as well as marine environmental protection, among others. We are pleased that some cooperative activities in the area of maritime cooperation have been undertaken by ASEAN and India through ASEAN-led mechanisms such as the ASEAN Regional Forum, the East Asia Summit, and the expanded ASEAN Maritime Forum. We appreciate India's role in these cooperative activities, as India has co-chaired with ASEAN a number of seminars on various topics related to maritime safety and security, including seminar on counter-piracy and armed robbery in Asia in 2015, seminar on regional confidence building and the law of the sea, and workshops on best practices in implementing safety of navigation instruments, which were held in 2015 and 17 respectively. Moreover, under the EAS framework, India has also hosted 3 EAS conferences on maritime security and cooperation in 2015, 2016, and 2018 in India. These activities clearly demonstrated the commitment of India and its ongoing efforts to promote maritime-related cooperation with ASEAN. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, being landlocked country in Southeast Asia, the Lao PDR pays very much attention to linkages and connectivity by land and air. At the same time, we also recognize the importance of maritime cooperation, particularly the sustainable use of maritime resources for economic growth in conjunction with the protection of marine biodiversity. We also share the view that peaceful, stable, and safe oceans create favorable conditions for business activities, economic cooperation, and developments in the whole region. The Lao PDR has benefited from the use of sea trade routes to transport goods and connect to countries in the region and the world through access to seaports of transit countries like Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar, and others. We therefore support efforts to promote cooperation on maritime safety, maritime connectivity, and maritime transport and services towards simplifying transnational maritime transport procedures and processes, facilitating import and export of goods, decreasing operational costs, and improving logistics arrangement, thereby further promoting trade and economic activities and growth in the region. The Lao PDR supports further strengthening of linkages between ASEAN and India in various aspects, including priority areas in the Master Plan of ASEAN Connectivity 2025, the Delhi Declaration, and the ASEAN-India Plan of Action to implement the ASEAN-India Partnership for Peace, Progress, and Shared Prosperity 2016-2020. These include land, aviation, and maritime transport connectivity, which comprise, among others, expediting the completion of the India-Myanmar-Thailand Trilateral Highway Project with extension to Laos, Vietnam, and Cambodia, developing India-Myanmar, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia Highway, and also expediting early conclusion of the ASEAN-India Air Transport Agreement and the ASEAN-India Maritime Transport Agreement. To conclude, the Lao PDR stands ready to work closely with other ASEAN member states and India to enhance ASEAN-India partnership, including strengthening maritime cooperation, which will contribute to the promotion of peace, stability, and development in the region and the world. I thank you.
Now I invite Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia.
Your Excellency, Mrs. Sushma Swaraj, Minister for External Affairs of India, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I thank the Government of India for the initiative and hospitality. Our dialogue today is both timely and strategic as geopolitical shifts are currently taking place in our region. These shifts include the growing prominence of the Indian Ocean and Rim, and its interlock with the Pacific Ocean and Rim, making it an inclusive and open Indo-Pacific region. For both India and ASEAN, these oceans form a geographical advantage that for centuries unites, connects, and mutually benefit us all. Very much in line with India's 3C formula: commerce, connectivity, and culture. Therefore, enhancing our maritime cooperation is not an option anymore. Instead, it is a necessity. There are three key areas of maritime cooperation that we must nurture. First, we must enhance maritime security cooperation. There remain existing traditional security challenges, such as rivalry among major powers. At the same time, non-traditional security threats in the form of drug trafficking, crime and robbery at sea, trafficking in persons and people smuggling, terrorism are also on rise. As responsible partners, ASEAN and India share responsibility to ensure the maritime safety and security in the Indian Ocean. We have no alternative but to redouble our efforts in securing our oceans through training, policy coordination, and various capacity building programs. Second, we must safeguard our economic advantages through maritime economic cooperation. The global economy in 2018 is forecasted to grow by 3.7% from 3.6% last year. Due to our cooperation, the economy of our region has experienced positive growth above global economic growth. Last year, the ASEAN and India's economies grew to around 5% and 7% respectively. Against the rising trend of protectionism elsewhere, ASEAN and India's economies should remain open and inclusive. ASEAN and India should be able to become center for economic growth in the Indo-Pacific region, which eventually contribute to regional prosperity and stability. Hence, connectivity is vital to ensure our region become a choke point. Just recently, we successfully convened the Indonesia-India Investment Forum, Chapter Aceh, Andaman, Nicobar, on 9 to 11 July 2018. It served an important step toward developing maritime connectivity between our islands. This is a concrete follow-up of the commitment of our two leaders to develop maritime cooperation, including the importance of developing connectivity between provinces and islands, as reflected in a statement on shared vision of India-Indonesia maritime cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. Cooperation in the development of maritime infrastructure and maritime transportation could pave the way for more robust trade and investment. To this end, Indonesia is planning to build up to 32 seaports until 2019, and 25 of which are in construction this year. Third, we must continue to strengthen our cooperation in protecting the environment to ensure the sustainability of our maritime advantage. I wish to recognize with appreciation yesterday's discussion on ways and means to exercise blue economy concept by ensuring maritime safety and security and encouraging cooperation and exchange and transfer of sea-friendly technology. However, our ocean is now facing a critical challenge caused by plastic debris. In 2015, World Economic Forum mentioned that in 2050, there would be more plastic in our ocean than fish. This is a slow-motion catastrophe in contravention with the concept of blue economy. To respond to this challenge, Indonesia is now proposing the ASEAN leaders' statement on regional plan of action on combating marine plastic debris. The proposed statement will encompass our collective effort to combat marine plastic debris as well as to preserve our ocean. We seek to support from all ASEAN colleagues and dialogue partners, including India, to our proposal. Indonesia also encourages more exchanges of knowledge and technology to resolve marine plastic debris problems. Furthermore, Indonesia also invited the participation of ASEAN colleagues and India to join the 5th Our Ocean Conference in Bali, 29 to 30 October 2018. This conference is aimed at generating commitment and taking action to maintain the sustainability of our ocean. Excellencies, moving forward, we must strengthen our regional institutional arrangement in our region. the Indo-Pacific regional cooperation. In doing so, we should not reinvent the wheel, since we can make use and synergize the existing mechanism, including EAS and IORA with its respective modality, to address common challenges and at the same time strengthen the above areas of cooperation. What we need now is better mutual understanding and strong political will. This is the time for ASEAN and India to march together toward common goals set by our leaders in their commemorative summit last January. I thank you.
Now I invite from Thailand, His Excellency, the advisor to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Your Excellencies, Mrs. Sushma Swaraj, Minister of External Affairs of India, Excellencies, heads of the delegation of ASEAN member states, distinguished participants, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure and honor to be with you at the 10th Delhi Dialogue. May I express my appreciation to the Government of India for the warm hospitality extended to me and my delegation. May I also congratulate the Government of India for successfully hosting the Delhi Dialogue since 2009 and celebrating its 10th anniversary this year. The Delhi Dialogue has served for 10 years as an important forum where policymakers, academics, as well as business leaders gather annually to discuss political security, economic, and social-cultural issues between ASEAN and India, and to explore ways and means to advance and deepen the ASEAN-India strategic partnership. This year's edition is the first following the successful ASEAN-India commemorative summit that was convened in New Delhi in January this year. For over 2,000 years, ASEAN and India have been friends and neighbors. Evidence of the earliest contact between India and Southeast Asia can be traced as far as back as the 1st century AD. Today, many symbolic traces of India's impact on Southeast Asian civilization are clearly visible in our religion, arts, and culture. In addition to the cultural and civilization links between our regions, evidence of extensive and dynamic trade between India and Southeast Asia has also been found. Commerce primarily happened via seas and ocean through the so-called Indian Ocean route, connecting Southeast Asia with India, the Middle East, and East Africa. In a contemporary setting of 21st century, most of the ASEAN member states and India remain maritime economies. Our trade is conducted mostly through the sea and oceans. Oceans offers benefits in a variety of forms through living resources, goods, maritime-based services and industry, renewable energy, and so on. The blue economy has become an important concept for driving sustainable economic growth for our regions in the modern world. To promote maritime links and maximize the utilization of ocean and seas, it is necessary to develop maritime infrastructure. We admire India's initiative in enhancing ASEAN-India connectivity in the maritime domain, including Kaladan Multi-Modal Transit Transport Project, which will connect the Eastern Indian seaport of Kolkata with the Chitwan seaport in Myanmar by sea. It will then link Chitwan seaport in Paletwa in Myanmar by Kaladan River route, and then from Paletva on to Mizoram by road transport. This reflects India's Act East policy, which seeks to expand its maritime cooperation to the east, focusing on maritime economic corridors, such as Mekong India Economic Corridor, which will connect the port city of Chennai to other important seaports in Southeast Asia, such as Dawai in Myanmar and Lam Chabang in Thailand. It would also complement the trilateral highway, which we hope will be completed by 2019. At the same time, rivers are equally important. My deputy minister spoke last year at the 9th Delhi Dialogue about the Panchatara Initiative, which in Sanskrit means 5 rivers, cooperation initiative. Panchatara aims to look at the 5 river networks of Yavati, Chao-Phraya, Mekong, Ganga, and Brahmaputra as a single strategic area with a single ecological system and interlinked economic sphere. Potential areas of cooperation under the Panchatara idea include promoting seamless connectivity, synchronized economies, and smart and connected city. The Panchatara Cooperation Initiative is natural outgrowth of India's Look East policy and Thailand's Look West policy, and links to potential economic cooperation frameworks, BIMSTEC, and ACMEX. Indeed, with the enhanced dynamism of ACMEX as a result of recent convened ACMEX summit in Thailand, we look to closer cooperation between ACMEX and other grouping as such for BIMSTEC, including in the area of maritime connectivity. While promoting maritime cooperation to further expand our economic ties, we must work together in a sustainable fashion. Technical cooperation for keeping our oceans and sea free from waste and debris, especially plastics, as well as conserving maritime resources, particularly sustainable fisheries, should be one among ASEAN-India cooperation priorities. Also, we must not forget that maritime commerce is vulnerable to challenges such as fishery caused by misunderstanding of, or lack of trust in maritime area, piracy and armed robbery against ships at sea. By this reason, cooperation at regional level to tackle issues of common concern would help maintain the peaceful use of maritime domain for common benefits. In this regard, we appreciate India's enthusiasm in promoting cooperation in maritime domain management and maritime security, which was extensively discussed at ASEAN-India Commemorative Summit in January. Thailand appreciates India's constructive roles in hosting EAS conference in maritime security and cooperation as an annual event since 2015, and the promotion of the blue economy. We will continue to cooperate with India in this endeavor. We will continue to cooperate with India in endeavor. Moreover, it is important to look at the Indian and Pacific Oceans as a single, interconnected maritime area, and therefore strengthen efforts to address key security issues in a manner that would complement economic and functional cooperation, which is already being pursued by the IORA and other fora. The idea of Indo-Pacific is thus one worth advancing further, anchor on the principle of openness, inclusiveness, transparency, rule-based, and ASEAN centrality. Any Indo-Pacific idea should be benefits all countries across the region, support ASEAN centrality, maintain the momentum of peace, stability, prosperity, and sustainable development in the region, and help to develop strategic new equilibrium across the 2 oceans. In closing, Thailand commends Vietnam for its achievement as a country coordinator for ASEAN-India dialogue relations. Thailand is pleased to take up this coordinatorship beginning in August for the next 3 years. As a country coordinator, Thailand is looking forward to working closely with India in all areas for our cooperation to further strengthen our strategic partnership with concrete outcomes. Our goals include a more balanced regional architecture, greater trust and stability between our friends and neighbors, an obstacle-free economic partnership, and enhanced connectivity and maritime cooperation, a rediscovery of our civilizational links, and South-South cooperation in innovation, inclusive and green growth and sustainable development. All these would lead to peace, stability, and prosperity in our two regions and two oceans, which will be increasingly interconnected as one economic area. As an ASEAN chair in 2019, we will help promote dynamic partnership with our friends and the international community through enhanced connectivity, including maritime connectivity between us. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, lastly, may I express our sincere appreciation to India and our ASEAN friends for the help and support for the successful rescues against our odds of the 12 boys and their football coach from a cave in Chiang Rai province, Thailand. It is a reflection of humanity at its best. The world coming together to save lives in a spirit of partnership and solidarity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now we turn to Philippines. Her Excellency, Madam Assistant Secretary of the Department of Foreign Affairs.
Her Excellency Minister Swaraj, our esteemed Chief Ministers from the Northeast states of India, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to begin my remarks by conveying my appreciation to the Government of India for the kind hospitality and excellent arrangements extended to the Philippine delegation. I'm deeply honored and pleased to participate in this year's Delhi Dialogue, which celebrates its 10th year anniversary, and the Philippines takes great interest in the dialogue's theme for this year on strengthening ASEAN-India maritime cooperation. The Philippines, as well as most of Southeast Asia, is predominantly covered by huge bodies of water that hold immense natural resources. My country is an archipelago of 7,107 islands, whether it's low or high tide, with 220 million hectares of water area, 7 times bigger than our 29.8 million hectares of land area, and we have one of the world's longest coastlines of 36,289 kilometers, longer than the coastlines of China and the United States of America. More than half of the Philippines' population live within 60 kilometers of that coastline. We are bounded by the West Philippine Sea, or some would say the South China Sea, Celebes Sea, and are situated in the Western Pacific Ocean. These waters are rich in marine biodiversity with one of the most populous and diverse aquatic ecosystems in the world. The Philippines, together with Indonesia and Malaysia, form part of the Coral Triangle, home to 75% of the world's reef-building corals. And by the way, this year is also the International Year of the Reefs. Moreover, the ASEAN region, with only 3% of the world's land area, is home to 18% of the world's known plants and animals. We heard earlier from the Vice Foreign Minister of Lao PDR that an estimated 80% of global trade by volume and 70% by value is transported by sea, and 60% of that volume of maritime trade passes through Asia. May I just add that the South China Sea alone carries approximately 1/3 of global shipping at an estimated worth of US $5 trillion. Mindful of these realities, there is the continuing important call for closer cooperation between ASEAN and other external partners, such as India, to address the development, the sustainable management, and security of resources in the maritime domain and environment. In this context, the Philippines welcomes India's proactive Act East policy, particularly Prime Minister Modi's initiative at the ASEAN-India Commemorative Summit held in January this year to strengthen ASEAN-India cooperation in maritime domain, which covered two key aspects, namely cooperation in the blue economy and maritime security cooperation. May I also recall that maritime security and cooperation was one of the 6 thematic priorities under the Philippine chairmanship of ASEAN in 2017, and we wanted to deliver the message that ASEAN adheres to the rule of law, that we will adhere to the freedom of navigation and overflight, and we will work for the peaceful resolution of disputes and work for the preservation and protection of marine environment and its resources. And in the East Asian Summit last year, we have successfully added maritime cooperation as a new area of cooperation in the Manila Plan of Action to advance the Phnom Penh Declaration on East Asia Summit Development Initiative. At the 20th meeting of the ASEAN-India Senior Officials meeting held in April this year, the meeting identified some priority areas for maritime cooperation. These are maritime law enforcement, cooperation in maritime domain awareness, search and rescue, enhancing interoperability and capability to address transnational maritime security concerns, including piracy and armed robbery against ships. I think that it would be useful to now harmonize and consolidate these priority areas with the recommendations put forward by the 2 workshops on blue economy held under the ASEAN-India Partnership, one that was held in Nha Trang in Vietnam last November, and the second workshop which was concluded yesterday here. Today, as we exchange views in this 10th edition of the dialogue, the Philippines simply would like to mention that we are ready to look and discuss the implementation of these forward-looking twin initiatives made by India. One, on strengthening maritime cooperation, and 2, evolving and nurturing cooperation between the peoples of Northeast Asian states and ASEAN as stakeholders in the ASEAN-India Strategic Partnership, so that together we can really say that we are jointly and consistently and steadfastly committed to peace, progress, and shared prosperity. So to end my remarks, all I can say is happy 10th anniversary Delhi Dialogue. See you next year. Thank you.
Now I invite the Ambassador of Cambodia for his remarks.
Honorable Sushma Swaraj, Minister of External Affairs of India, Excellency, Head of Delegation from ASEAN country, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, let me express the warm greeting from my senior minister and foreign minister, His Excellency Praksakon, who is unable to attend today's event due to his prior commitment in the country. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank the government of India, particularly the Ministry of External Affairs, for the excellent arrangement made for the annual one-fire truck gathering. On behalf of my government, I would like to underscore the importance of the daily dialogue, which has served to 10 years as an effective platform for experts, think tanks, government officials to discuss and exchange views on the wide range of important issues under ASEAN-India cooperation. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, the theme of this year, the Daily Dialogue 10, Strengthening India-ASEAN Maritime Advantage, reflect her ambition in advancing ASEAN-India strategic partnership to a higher level for shared progress and prosperity. I can simply say that ASEAN and India have been bounded by strong and long-term ties that date back centuries ago. Our cooperation at broadband and enhanced in the key area of cooperation, politically, economically, and socio-culturally. Today, ASEAN and India has combined population of 1/3 of the global population and combined GDP of over 3.8 trillion US dollar. This makes our two regions as one of the largest economic space in the world. Despite the conclusion of the ASEAN-India after, ASEAN-India totally merchandise trade reached only 58.4 billion US dollar in 2016, far less than its potential. For that reason, I believe more joint effort and political commitment are needed if we are to achieve the target 200 billion US dollar by 2022. It is undeniable that we are still facing some challenge in making the full utilization of the ASEAN-India after. They require our strong focus and joint action to inject more impetus for the ASEAN-India partnership. Looking ahead in the future cooperation, I believe both sides should carefully review the outstanding issues that are still pending and explore more innovative ways to maximize the economic trade potential presented under ASEAN-India economic cooperation. For the time being, it is crucial that both sides conclude the negotiation of the RCEP, since it will serve as the driving force to promote growth, create new jobs, enhance the regional supply chain and value chain. I wish to recall that during ASEAN-India Commemorative Summit to the mark 25th anniversary of ASEAN-India dialogue relation in New Delhi early this year, ASEAN-India leaders have emphasized the importance of the RCEP and encouraged the early conclusion of the negotiation. ASEAN is the major destination for the outward foreign direct investment from India. For the record, foreign direct investment flow from India to ASEAN reached 1.05 billion US dollar in 2016, about 22% of Indian global OFDI stock was in ASEAN in 2015, and at least 1,950 Indian companies are present in the region. That is, say that opportunity might larger than the share of global OFDI stock of Japan, US, China, and EU in the region. Moreover, Indian of FDI flow to ASEAN fluctuate widely between 2005 and 2016, with a peak in 2012. Thus, we pursue that this momentum for ASEAN-India investment to further strengthen depend. Moving forward, it all the more pressing to fully operationalize the ASEAN-India Trade and Investment Center, and to completely and effectively implement the ASEAN-India Free Trade Agreement. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to emphasize significant role of technology itself in the 21st century in variety of fields, including technology in agriculture, business, in education, in human relations, to name just a few in terms of their effect on economic growth. Hence, one of the most important areas ASEAN and India could collaborate in the field of science and technology. Once again, I wish to recall the letter at the 15th ASEAN-India Summit in the Philippines last year, appreciated the increase of the funding in the ASEAN-India Science and Technology Development Fund from 1 million to 5 million in 2016, the aim of which is to further encourage and sustain the implementation of the collaborative R&D and technology development program between ASEAN and India. They also noticed India's engagement with the CLMV country, both at bilateral and multilateral level, especially ongoing implementation of the pilot project on the gigabit capable passive optical network technology and in the CLMV country and Indonesia. For that reason, I believe that both sides should broadly strengthen and deepen in science and technology cooperation in the area of higher tech human resource training, particularly in the CLMV country, capacity building, development in information and communication technology, space communication technology, and research related to climate change. Enhancing digital connectivity is another dimension to make full use innovation technology to improve the life and livelihood of our people. Let me now conclude by stressing on the need to deepen ASEAN-India cooperation in the year to come so as to bring shared progress and prosperity for the people of the region. Thank you very much. Okay.
Now I would request High Commissioner of Malaysia.
The Honorable Srimati Sushma Swaraj, Minister of External Affairs of the Republic of India, Honorable Ministers, distinguished Head of Delegation of ASEAN, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum, Selamat Petang, and Namaskar. First and foremost, allow me to extend warm greetings from the Honorable Datuk Saifuddin Abdullah, Malaysia's new Foreign Minister, who is unable to be here with us. Nevertheless, extends his warmest greetings and wish the 10th Delhi Dialogue every success. I would also like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Government of India for convening this 10th Delhi Dialogue, which is a clear manifestation of India's strong commitment in strengthening ASEAN-India strategic partnership since our dialogue relations first started in 1992. ASEAN and India celebrated our 25th anniversary via a series of commemorative events throughout 2017 and 2018. The culmination of these events was the ASEAN-India Commemorative Summit held earlier in January this year, back to back with the 69th Republic Day of India in New Delhi. At the commemorative summit, our leaders reviewed ASEAN and India's achievements for the past 25 years. Our leaders also adopted the Delhi Declaration and charted the future direction of ASEAN-India strategic partnership. The Delhi Declaration not only encouraged both sides to strengthen existing cooperation in the three pillars, namely political, security, and socio-cultural, but it spelled out practical areas of future partnership, including non-traditional cooperation. One of the most important areas highlighted in the declaration is maritime cooperation. In this connection, this year's theme of the Delhi Dialogue, which is strengthening ASEAN-India maritime advantage, is indeed timely. It reflects our commitment to enhance trade and economic linkages of both sides by strengthening maritime connectivity in line with India's three Cs of commerce, connectivity, and culture. We also wish to congratulate India for successfully hosting the second workshop on blue economy yesterday, held here in Delhi. We were pleased to note that the participants had constructive discussion and exchanged views to progress ASEAN-India cooperation in the field of blue economy, particularly on issues relating to conservation and sustainable use of marine resources. We believe that the outcome of this workshop would further synergize ASEAN-India strategic partnership in strengthening our cooperation in maritime. On a similar note, we look forward to an early conclusion of the ASEAN-India Maritime Transport Agreement and ASEAN-India Transit Transport Agreement. Conclusion of these two agreements would further support the growth of business and tourism between ASEAN and India. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate India's strong support to ASEAN centrality and in our pursuit of rules-based regional architecture, which is open, inclusive, balanced, and equitable. At the same time, we welcome India's initiative, namely the Act East policy, which clearly reflects the importance India attaches to its strategic partnership with ASEAN. On the economic front, Malaysia is pleased to note that ASEAN-India trade and investment relations have been growing steadily, with India being ASEAN's 7th largest trading partner. Total trade between ASEAN and India averaged USD 67 billion over the last 4 years. There are huge potentials and opportunities to enhance economic ties between ASEAN and India. Both ASEAN and India are witnessing significant rise in middle-class populations with increasing purchasing power. Intensifying promotional activities in ASEAN and India and strengthening private sector cooperation would be critical towards the expansion of trade and investment ties. In this regard, the ASEAN-India Business Council, AIBC, could be one of the leading organizations to provide the platform to bring the businesses in ASEAN and India closer. The AIBC needs to be strengthened to take the lead role, and in this context, the governments of ASEAN and India are requested to nominate members to the Council who can assume a proactive role in enhancing ASEAN-India private sector linkages. Malaysia regards India as one of its most important and strategic overseas markets for investments in the infrastructure sector. India's vast market, high economic growth, strong emphasis on infrastructure development, and liberalization policy adopted by India are areas Malaysian businesses and construction companies can participate in. Malaysia is very interested to further participate in the infrastructure development available in India that will provide mutual benefits for both regions. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we stand on the brink of a technological revolution that will fundamentally alter the way we live, work, and relate to one another. We acknowledge that the fourth industrial revolution have great potential to connect billions of people on the web, drastically improve the efficiency of business, and more importantly, it will impact on the policy making, public engagement, and implementation process in governments and authorities. Last year, Malaysia hosted the ASEAN 2050 Forum, Fourth Industrial Revolution, on 2nd and 3rd of November 2017 in Putrajaya. Recently, Malaysia also organized the Fourth Industrial Conference in collaboration with the ASEAN and Pacific Center for Transfer of Technologies, with the theme New and Emerging Technologies in Achieving Sustainable Development Goals on the 3rd and 4th of July 2018 in Kuala Lumpur. Both forums and conferences serve as the platforms for participants to exchange knowledge and share experience on the fourth industrial technologies. In this regard, Malaysia welcomes cooperation with ASEAN members and India for fourth industrial revolution and look forward to strengthening ASEAN-India cooperation in this area. We are also of the view that holistic framework should be put in place collectively to escalate this technology to a new dimension. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, on the socio-cultural cooperation, we recognize the importance of people-to-people exchanges in creating long-term relations. Indeed, the Southeast Asian cultures, traditions, and languages have been profoundly influenced by these early linkages. We see Hindu-Buddhist influences in many historical sites, such as Angkor Wat complex in Cambodia, the Borobudur Prambanan in Indonesia, as well as the ancient Chandis in Kedah, Malaysia. In this regard, we laud India's commitment to strengthen ASEAN-India people-to-people ties through the various programs, including the ASEAN-India Student Exchange Program, India Scholarship Program for ASEAN students, Special Course for ASEAN diplomats, ASEAN-India Young Farmers Exchange Program, ASEAN-India Network of Think Tanks, etc. We look forward to deepen and explore collaboration with India in strengthening our social, cultural cooperation and people-to-people contact through these programs. Looking further ahead, there's still much that governments must do to manage our resources and engage ourselves in the task of strengthening our relationship for the betterment of the people in ASEAN and India. Before I conclude, I would like to reiterate again that Malaysia has great interest to see ASEAN-India partnership flourish further. We remain steadfast to engage constructively with India in realizing activities that could bind the ASEAN-India partnership further. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Now we move towards the last statement, but no way the least, in fact, pivot to this whole effort from ASEAN Secretariat. You have the floor, Excellency, the Deputy Secretary General of Political Affairs at the ASEAN Secretariat.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Sushma Swaraj, Minister of External Affairs of India, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to join my colleagues from ASEAN to express my appreciation to the government of India for the warm hospitality, excellent arrangement, and cordial welcome to our delegation, as well as to delegations from ASEAN. First of all, I must emphasize that we in ASEAN put premium on our relations with our partners, particularly India. And we work closely with all of them to ensure that the partnerships remain dynamic and mutually beneficial. It is an ongoing but a key process to keep these partnerships robust and adaptive to the evolving regional and global challenges. At ASEAN, we see the increasing interactions between not only individual members of ASEAN, but ASEAN as an organization with India. Just last week, we received a delegation of scholars from India, led by Ambassador Rajiv Bhatia. He's over there. And we exchange lots of issues on how to move our relations forward. Platforms for thinking through ASEAN relations with its partners, such as daily dialogue, are always useful. Not only do dialogues such as this strengthen our partnerships, they are also useful in exploring ways on how to further deepen our relations. We do hope that this year's dialogue would have generated ideas on how to further enhance on our strategic partnership, a vision enshrined in the Delhi Declaration. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, just like India, ASEAN is determined to promote peace and stability, enhance the economic well-being and livelihood of our people, and work together for regional development and progress. While ASEAN celebrated its 50th anniversary last year, which for some is an indication of a mature organization, we in ASEAN believe that we still have a long way to go. Definitely, the organization may not be that entirely young, but ASEAN, we believe, shares two characteristics of young adults: the ability to envision a better world and the readiness to adapt to challenges that come along the way. ASEAN is determined to pursue with vigor our community building aspirations. We are clear of our plans as contained in our Community Vision 2025 and the attendant political and security, economic, and social cultural blueprints. Notwithstanding the challenges that we face, we find comfort in our partnership's recognition of our contribution that ASEAN plays in promoting peace and stability, as well as economic prosperity across the region. The sustained interactions with ASEAN of our current partners and the interest by a number of other countries within and outside the Asia-Pacific to partner with ASEAN, either formally or informally, manifest the importance they give to ASEAN. India is one of those partners of ASEAN which has strongly supported our community building efforts as well as made meaningful contribution to enhancing our capacity as a region. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, ASEAN-India relations and cooperation have progressed steadily over the past 2.5 decades along a broad spectrum. We hope to pursue our partnerships for peace, progress, and prosperity. Indeed, ASEAN and India are committed to strengthen our economic links. Less than 5 years ago, our leaders reaffirmed the commitment to promote ASEAN-India trade and investment with a two-way trade of $200 billion by 2022, being the target. While you are on the path toward achieving this, with ASEAN-India trade having increased to $73.49 billion in 2017 from $68.27 billion in 2012. We also fully understand that much more needs to be done if we are to accelerate our trade relations and attain the $200 billion target. Meanwhile, the past 2 years saw the Indian investment in ASEAN at the level of $1.8 billion. The effective implementation of the ASEAN-India Free Trade Area, as well as through the desire for early conclusion of the regional comprehensive economic partnership, would further boost our trade and investment between ASEAN and India. We need to further boost our connectivity, whether in the maritime, land, or air domains. We need to have more people-to-people interactions among our academics, parliamentarians, journalists, the young, and more importantly, among people through tourism. Needless to say, our partnership transcends the ASEAN-India level, with India having been and continues to actively take part in the various regional mechanisms centered on ASEAN, to include the East Asia Summit, the ASEAN Regional Forum, the ASEAN Defense Ministers Meeting Plus, and expanded ASEAN Maritime Forum. Not only India has taken part in these platforms, it has also spearheaded, together with ASEAN members, concrete activities to enhance our collective capacity to address the challenges we face. Together with the Philippines, India has co-organized the AIF workshop on best practices implementing safety of navigation instruments last year. Together with Vietnam, India co-organized the first workshop on blue economy in 2017, with the second one just ended yesterday. 3 EAS conferences of maritime security and cooperation have likewise been organized by India. Having a collective stake in the maritime domain, cooperation in maritime security has been identified as one of the main elements of ASEAN-India strategic partnership proposed during the ASEAN-India commemorative summit last year. Early this year. Let me stress that India has not only actively taken part in these platforms or initiated activities. More importantly, ASEAN-India has consistently supported ASEAN centrality in these and through these mechanisms. Maintaining ASEAN centrality has always been challenging, and we see that in a region constantly in a state of influx, a security architecture centered on ASEAN remains to be the truly inclusive one, whereby all relevant stakeholders would and could be engaged. Lest it be forgotten, regional peace and stability is best attained when none is excluded. We are hopeful that ASEAN would continue to serve as an effective platform whereby India could substantiate its policy. In conclusion, I would like to emphasize that as strategic partners, we, ASEAN and India, need to further deepen our cooperation. In areas where cooperation exists, let us work together to accelerate our efforts. In areas where cooperation is nascent, let us establish a collective understanding. And all the while, let us continue to explore cooperative undertaking in other uncharted terrains, for that is the essence of being strategic partners. Thank you very much.
So as we come to the end of this section, I would like to invite Secretary Preeti Saran to extend vote of thanks.
Namaskar. Good evening. Honorable Minister for External Affairs, Srimati Sushma Swaraj, distinguished dignitaries on the podium, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to propose the vote of thanks at the conclusion of the ministerial session of the 10th edition of the Delhi Dialogue. Our special thanks go out to our External Affairs Minister, Srimati Sushma Swaraj, for kindly hosting the Delhi Dialogue and for her keynote address, which focused on ASEAN-India cooperation in maritime domain. I take this opportunity to also thank her for her constant guidance and the energy with which she has inspired us to move India-ASEAN relations forward. External Affairs Minister first articulated India's Act East policy during her official visit to Vietnam in August 2014. She has since steered this policy, monitoring it on a daily basis. She has chaired regular meetings with the governors and chief ministers of the northeastern states to integrate the development of our northeastern states with India's Act East policy. Her initiative to invite chief ministers of the northeastern states to participate in the Delhi Dialogue has made this an integral part of our regular deliberations. The presence of the chief ministers, deputy chief ministers, ministers of northeastern states for the dialogue testifies this. It indicates the momentum this initiative has acquired. This is the fourth Delhi Dialogue hosted by our External Affairs Minister. The Delhi Dialogue was evolved into a composite, productive, and the foremost forum to discuss key strategic and economic issues between India and ASEAN. The importance of Delhi Dialogue is evident by the high level of participation this year by diverse stakeholders, both from India and the ASEAN member countries. We welcome and deeply appreciate the presence of so many dignitaries from ASEAN countries who are here with us this evening. I place on record our deepest appreciation for His Excellency Dr. Vivian Balakrishnan, Minister for Foreign Affairs, Singapore, His Excellency Sera Setia Dato Abdul Muttalib, Minister of Communications, Brunei Darussalam, His Excellency Yu Kwa Thin Swe, Union Minister, Ministry of Office of State Councillor, Myanmar, His Excellency Mr. Thong Pane Sambanphet, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Lao PDR, His Excellency Mr. A.M. Fahir, Vice Minister, Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Mr. Nguyen Kok Zung, Vice Minister, Vietnam, His Excellency Mr. Chai Siri Anamar, Advisor to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Thailand, Her Excellency Maria Helen de la Vega, Assistant Secretary and leader, former SOM leader from the Department of Foreign Affairs, Philippines, His Excellency Mr. Pichkun Panaha, Ambassador of the Kingdom of Cambodia to India, and His Excellency Dato Hidayat Abdul Hamid, High Commissioner of Malaysia to India, His Excellency Huang Antuan, Deputy Secretary General for Political Affairs, ASEAN Secretariat. Continuing with the tradition of the previous Delhi dialogues, we have the unique privilege to welcome Chief Ministers of India's northeastern states, Shri Conrad Sangma, Chief Minister Meghalaya, Shri Lal Thanhawla, Chief Minister Mizoram, Shri Biplab Kumar Deb, Chief Minister Tripura, who was here with us in the morning, Shri Chawna Mien, Deputy Chief Minister Arunachal Pradesh, Shri Chandra Mohan Patwari, Minister of Industries and Commerce, Assam. I would like to thank them all for their presence amidst us today. I'd also like to thank Ambassador Mohan Kumar, Chairman RIS, and his team at the RIS led by Sri Sachin Chaturvedi and Dr. Prabir Dey, Coordinator, ASEAN India Center at RIS, for assisting us and partnering with us in conducting this Delhi dialogue. I would like to express our deep appreciation to our other partners and associate institutions, the India-ASEAN Business Council, the Area, Jakarta, the National Maritime Foundation, New Delhi, and the Institute of South Asian Studies. They have all contributed to this dialogue in myriad ways. Last but not the least, I express our gratitude to all of you present here today, once again, for your participation in this Delhi dialogue and for your efforts to promote closer relations between ASEAN and India. Your presence here this evening has made this 10th Delhi dialogue that much more special, and it was a pleasure having you with us. I take this opportunity to invite you to participate in the discussions that will be held in tomorrow's session as well. Honorable Minister, yesterday, the Ministry of External Affairs, in partnership with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Vietnam, organized the second ASEAN-India workshop on blue economy. The workshop discussed various aspects of the blue economy, including enhancing maritime connectivity between regions, sustainably using maritime resources, and promoting maritime safety and security. A set of recommendations have emerged out of these deliberations. I would request our Minister of External Affairs to kindly receive the recommendations from Professor Nishimura, President of IRIA. Ma'am, if you could just kindly come in here.
Now we would like to invite Honorable Chief Ministers to join here for the group photograph along with the ministers, please. I would also like to invite Honorable MOS to join us here, General V.K. Singh and Shri M.J. Akbar.